Hang on one second, please. I just want to make sure. I don't have my password, so I don't know. I can't log in. Sorry.
Do you need to log into me again?
Could you? I'm sorry. For some reason I didn't write it down. It knows me. It wants me to log in.
Yes, we got it set up for you.
Yeah, and of course I don't have the password, so sorry. But next time I will, I promise.
It's good, yeah. Now we like need a bigger table.
Yes. Hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
So,
Thank you. Thank you.
so we're using these documents in the order that they're stacked.
Nice to meet you. I think we'll formally introduce you.
So, you.
Oh, yes, let's call this meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes. We have, it looks like, minutes from 3 previous meetings to approve.
You can only approve one because there was a bunch of you weren't, most of you weren't present for the 2 previous meetings.
Oh, okay.
So you can only approve
So
the
for the
20
last meeting, which
Yeah.
was on
the 22nd.
the 22nd of February. And I don't know if everyone here has seen a copy of those. But do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Also moved.
I guess I'll make them, right. So we're good on that.
Can we just do names before we do this? So
Yeah,
Or
I'm sorry, we
actually-
should have, actually do
Because
introductions
I
first.
can't record this without
Yeah.
that.
So why don't we go through and do introductions?
And if I could
Alright.
have first and last names, just so I could put them on here and that way I can
Oh,
refer.
for the
back.
attendance?
Yeah,
All
thank you.
right, so we'll start over here.
Amy Hatton. I live on Haycock Street. And I actually was on the DRB, and I've come to the other side, in planning, which is good.
Awesome. Palace Zaporin, Poryn.
Thank you.
Abby, ABBY, Blithing, BLEYTHING.
Terry Zygmunt.
I am Harka Khatka, Harka, and KHADKA.
KHADKA.
Yep.
And that was HA.
RKA.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
And I'm Lauren Sampson.
LAUREN.
And then Sampson with a P.
Hopefully we'll go through all the names again later too, just so we can make sure everybody's knows each other. Okay, so, I guess for record-keeping purposes, I have made the motion to approve the minutes and.
Actually, Lauren did.
Lauren did, I thought she, okay, oh, she
So-
moved it, so we need a second.
Second.
Second, okay, perfect. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right. So now we move into public comment. It doesn't seem like we have anyone from the public here tonight. Item number 4 is to review and approve the Downtown Transportation Fund grant to support the Catma Bike Share And that would involve a presentation by Heather. Is she?
She's not present, however, I will carry the water for her today.
Okay.
I'm gonna be short about it.
And
we're-
so I didn't know, like, I probably have to recuse myself from any voting because I'm on that bike share team. So I'm happy to like answer questions or tell the group about it, but I don't think, right, I wouldn't vote on it.
Yeah. So essentially, we're asking, the count, first let me stop up and back up and say the council has already approved this. This is almost more or less a procedural move on your behalf. But the grant proposal asks for support for a bike share, a 50-50 match on a bike share. Funds, according to this, are available up to $100,000 and it for 2 bike stations within the downtown, bike share stations within the downtown. So they're actually asking for $30,000 to be a combination of in-kind labor with DPW staff, installation, and the remainder to be funded by the city budget. So
Do we know where these would be located?
I think that, do you know, Abby?
I know, well, phase one, the location is by our transportation center down by Winooski Falls. There's been no determination on any other. There's a couple spots that are highlighted for the other hubs, but there's been no finalization on anything but the one downtown.
And is that information required in the grant proposal?
I don't believe so.
I was just gonna say, I think that it'd be good if there was maybe some coordination with the Main Street revitalization project, because that might be a good target area for a second location. I mean, rather than clustering them right in the circle, moving one a little bit further up.
Best practice is at least a quarter mile away. And yeah, it would be something that would be brought to city council and you guys to help pick a second location residents. But that was the sort of first, that location made sense for dropping the bikes at first, since we have the bus down there and it's sort of a mobility hub.
That makes a lot of sense. Great.
How many bikes are there?
So the whole system is 105 bikes. There's 17 hubs in phase one. One of them's in Winooski. 25% of the bikes are electric assist. Yeah, and the rest are 7 speeds. So the Winooski hub will start with 5 bikes and 2 racks. So that's 8 parking spaces and 5 bikes. But at any time, those bikes there could be 10 bikes on this rack, right? Or no bikes on this rack. It depends where people are taking them, because you don't have to return it to where you started. You can return it to any of the 17 hubs.
And that's within Chittenden, or what's the 17 hub? I mean,
Yeah, so phase one is Burlington, South Burlington, Winooski. And I can run through the 17 if you guys
Does
are
that include the
interested.
university?
Yep. Yeah, so there's 5 along the spine of campus. There's 2 on
And who is it? What's the bike share company?
So the group that's coordinating is, I represent UVM, and then Champlain College, we have CATMA, CCRPC, and so that's like the coordinating group, and we selected through an RFP process the vendor called Gotcha Bikes,
Gotcha.
but we as the community own it versus them.
Say
And
that
it's
again?
all
You buy the
sponsored.
whole thing?
So yeah, we have sponsors like this, like the cities have all come to contribute, the university and college have contributed. So it's probably over 25 different contributions to make it happen.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we as like all these contributors own the bike share and determine what happens with the bike share.
So there must be some kind of servicing, like management
Yeah, so
agreement
Old
with the-
Spokes Home is gonna do the management, which is awesome. And they have an agreement with Gotcha Bikes. So it's not, all of the bike maintenance, bike repair, rebalancing of the bikes is through Gotcha's contract with Old Spokes Home.
Now, does Gotcha move the bikes? If all the bikes pile up on UVM campus, do they move the 5 back here in a timely manner?
Yeah, so the way the rebalancing works is they are supposed to keep the bikes balanced, either through, they're actually bike balancing them, so they have a bike trailer that they're biking around and the e-bikes balance, or there's a program called a Bike Angel program, where if we see like there's too many bikes up on the hill and not enough in the bottom, what we're thinking is bikes will end up at the bottom and not the top. But anyway, you'll get a pop-up as a member of the bike share and say, hey, if you bike to the Winooski hub, to this hub at the university, you'll earn riding credit. So it's called like a Bike Angel, so you can earn money to ride the bikes just by taking bikes back to different hubs. So it's a pretty amazing, the back end is social bikes, so V-Bikes is the back end, and the data and the amount of stuff we can do with the system that's on the bike is incredible, and that's why we chose them. So social bikes would never go after our small community, but Gotcha Bikes works with small communities and uses SOBI technology.
And is that, because it's a small community, did you have to buy them? Is that the gist of Gotcha Bikes? Is that how they always work? Or, I mean, did you look at just, I guess, having a company that would rent them for a certain
So
period
they're
of time?
leased.
They are
yeah,
leased,
mhm,
okay.
Yep.
Interesting.
So we tell them where we want the hubs and sort of what pricing models, and that's what we work with them on, but the bikes, they're responsible for. So if somebody steals one, or if it breaks, they're responsible on the hook for replacing them.
That's cool.
And then they'll take them back after their life. and-
Where else are they doing this? Do you know? I mean, using that system?
Yeah, they have, I think about 16 to 20 different bike shares on the ground now. So if you got a
So that's
Gotcha
amazing.
Bikes, you can see all of the locations
Oh, that's cool.
that they have them. Yeah, their most recent one was Charleston. They did a citywide bike share there.
Sorry, one more question. Do you pay a monthly subscription, or is it just like $7 a day, or is
You-
it both?
Yeah, both. So you have the pay-as-you-go option, which is $2 per ride. You have a monthly option, which is $15 a month. And these all get, so the pay per ride is a 30-minute ride. The monthly, if you're a monthly member, you get an hour, up to an hour a day of ride time. And then your annual member's only $50. And you get an hour, up to an hour a day.
Okay, so it's not like you can take it and go for a cruise and.
It's not, we're not trying to compete with the bike shops. They were really worried about that, but this is a commute, this is to get you places. It's a commute thing.
So it's gonna have panniers or
A
potential,
basket.
a basket, yeah.
Yeah.
What about helmets?
So helmets
lights.
are, it does come with, the lights automatically turn on when you turn the bike, so that's law, right? So that'll be covered.
Even for the ones that aren't e-bikes?
Yep, yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yep,
Cool.
the lights automatically come on. And then the helmets, we are gonna provide different locations, or once you're a member, you can pick up discounted helmets. But it's an 18 and over system, so you as the adult decides whether you
Got
wanna
it.
wear helmets. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And do you know what kind of bikes they are? Like
So-
what brand?
Well, they're like they're a bike share bike. So Gotcha made and manufactured their own bikes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
This is so exciting. So you said it's only for adults 18 and above?
18 and above, yeah.
So kids cannot.
Yeah,
Right, okay.
yeah, and that's pretty standard across bike shares and liability and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's just adding mobility, another mobility option to our community.
So
So
great.
we're super excited about it.
Yeah.
So you said there would be 10 altogether in Winooski? 5 at each hub, is that what I heard you say?
Oh, total bikes. So phase one is, this is for, if we have additional money, we can do additional hubs, but what the money that we have committed right now, we could put one hub in Winooski. So we could put additional hubs if if there's the money and there gets approval, but the plan right now is to put the 2 bike racks, which is 8 hoops, with 5 bikes. But it's not like the 5 bikes stay, right? So you could have 12 bikes on the rack, or 1 bike on the rack, or no bikes on the rack.
Right, but at 6 o'clock in the morning, presumably there'd be
5 bikes,
5 bikes in Winooski.
yeah.
And there's 2 racks, you said?
2 racks.
In the same place or in 2
Yeah,
different places?
same place.
Oh, okay.
With signage and everything to explain like how to use the bike and how to become a member. And
And so it's $30 just for one hub? I mean, 30,000 for one hub?
No.
Or is that?
no, so this is they're trying to get more than 1 hub in Winooski. So this is going to get multiple hubs in Winooski, and that would be relying on you guys and other Winooski residents to say where
2
those hubs
hubs.
would be most helpful.
2 hubs total is what the goal is, or
So I think at full build out we have 4 hubs in
4 hubs.
Winooski. Yeah.
okay, great.
Yeah, this is.
But it would be nice to have the e-bike to go up the hill. That's my commute.
Yeah, people are gonna love that. People, it is a game changer, let me tell you.
Yeah,
I have one, and
and that was the thing. We didn't want just bikers to get on these. We want people who don't bike to feel comfortable participating in the bike share, and people who might not even consider biking to jump on an e-bike and see that it's doable, and all of the barriers, right? Sweating between meetings, the time it takes to pedal, blah, 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 blah. I think a lot of the e-bikes will address that.
So what we're trying to approve right now is just supporting this grant proposal.
Yeah, and if you make a motion to approve this, then Mike O'Brien will sign it tomorrow or the next day.
All right, all right. Does anyone want to make that motion to,
I move.
okay.
A second.
Okay, great. We have a second. All those in favor of approving this proposal?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes. So now we move on to probably what will be the bulk of our meeting, which is the Planning Commission introduction and orientation, and I will turn it over to Paul. You're gonna be doing this, right?
So, welcome. There's 4 new members and 2 of you who I don't know if you ever had a proper orientation or we just threw you in.
No.
Terry came before I did, so so I'm going to give you a brief overview, which is covered in this document that I sent to you on the weekend. This covers all the varieties of municipal appropriate municipal panels, AMPs, as they're called with the state. You happen to belong to now the Planning Commission, or have been appointed to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission has a very specific role. It essentially has the capacity to set policy. It doesn't rule on policies once they're set, so you will never see a project other than a project like this. You'll never see a zoning project per se, but you as a body sort of write the rules of the road. You're in charge of drafting or rewriting the zoning ordinance and the municipal plan, and in theory also the capital budget plan if we chose to pursue that. But the big things, the big line items are really the bylaw and the municipal plan, which we'll get into in a few minutes. And then the other piece that you're charged with, if there's any sort of policy or kind of general practices or sort of planning initiatives that the city's engaging in, we will typically come to you for either approval or you'll be the clearinghouse for it. For example, the Planning Commission is the current body that reviews and passes on or recommends to council anything to do with the Main Street revitalization project. So there's a whole number of initiatives that would come before you, including something like this. Municipal planning grants would come before you for approval. Any sort of thing that is generally geared toward a planning policy would come before you. And there's a flow chart within this document that kind of shows the roles and responsibilities of the various entities. There's you guys, so you write the rules for the DRB, and the DRB is the body that enforces the rules for zoning. So again, you do the town plan, the bylaw, and any other studies or capital budgets we would look at. So, for example, this body reviewed the economic development strategic plan. You would be in charge of reviewing the energy plan, in charge of the current transportation master plan. This body also was part of the steering committee for the form-based code that was, or the Gateways project, which was zoning ordinance. Trying to think of the other things but it's a pretty broad palette of policy structuring things that you're charged with. So does anyone have any questions about that or comments?
So I was looking at this, and one thing that frequently kept coming across, coming across is bylaws. So is bylaws somewhere in this packet, or how can I access bylaws?
I sent you the bylaws by way of email on the weekend, and I can get you all a copy of them, and I will get you a copy of them because you will be in. I just printed up a ton of stuff today, and just printing up another thick packet of more colored photocopies. I was having guilt things. But we will be addressing the bylaws, and actually you will be in very short order, amendments to the bylaw. And again, the bylaw is the zoning ordinance by which any development that takes place within the city must adhere to the bylaw. End of story. And that is, again, something this body is in charge of and will be readdressing. However, just let me back up and say a little bit about Winooski's zoning bylaw or uniform uniform land use ordinance, which is the bylaw, is that it's a unique document in the state of Vermont and in largely New England because it's a hybrid between a conventional zoning bylaw, which most communities in Vermont have, and we also have a form-based code, which is the gateway districts, which is a very unique. Well, ours is unique to Winooski, but there's only 3 or 4 communities in Vermont that have form-based codes, and they're a little different than conventional zoning, which we'll have to do some, as we get into the zoning ordinance rewrite or amendments, we'll have to get into some training on how that works or how they work, so that there's kind of common understanding amongst you guys about what they do. We have Amy, who was on the DRB, and truthfully, she's never, because the DRB does not see the form-based code regulations in play, has never seen them in action. So it's a different approach to zoning than most communities have, and truthfully, what the state has geared these bodies toward, or its trainings, it hasn't really accommodated for the kind of uniqueness that is Winooski's zoning ordinance.
Do we plan on staying that way, or is there hopes to do everything form-based code, or is there, I mean, I didn't.
I looked over it. If you asked me that question, I would say it's much more advantageous to be form-based code 100% of the way, but that's not a decision that I alone would make. It would be up to you and council, I think. So
I just didn't know what the intent was down the road.
So we decided to focus on the types of zoning that we're going to create what we wanted to see from a development standpoint of the gateways district. So when we undertook form-based code, the focus was gateway district development and focus on that. The character of the neighborhoods was largely, we decided to keep intact with a few tweaks.
And when was the form-based code officially enacted? When did it become policy?
May 2016, I think.
Okay.
So it's been a while, and
so all of the new development that we see coming up in the Gateway District
Right.
is under form-based code.
yeah, all the development that is occurring. There's 3 or 4 projects on East Allen. There's 2 in construction on Main. There's 3 more in the works at least. So and to give you the short synopsis of the difference between the 2, conventional zoning versus form-based code. Conventional zoning can take one of 2 paths: administrative review, which is something that the zoning administrator looks at and either grants or not, or development review board review, where there's a higher level of review required, which the applicant must go to the DRB and meet standards that are set up in the zoning ordinance and by state statute. The gateway districts or the form-based code, if you meet the qualifications or the requirements of the code, everything is done administratively. So the building that, notably 348 Main on Main Street, which is almost complete, 4 stories, 24 units, retail on the ground floor, was an administrative permit. So the advantage to that is, there's lots of advantages, but one real obvious one is to the developer or the development community. They're kind of guaranteed a very streamlined process, so it makes developing to the standards set up by the form-based code in Winooski, as opposed to some other community, very desirable. So that's why we've been seeing sort of an uptick in development, good development that meets the code standard. So when we get into that, which we will, I have a list of things that are going to be code amendments, or I'm going to put them in front of you to be discussed as potential code amendments. It's all ultimately on your shoulders. We'll take the time to really get familiar with what it means and what the implications are. Yes?
If I could, so, each commission has a liaison from city council, and for you guys, I'm your liaison, so I come to the meetings too and kind of help update council on what's going on and the work that's going on. And I think, Harka, to your question of bylaws, I interpret your question as what are the rules of the road? The rules of the road are provided by the state statute that creates the space for planning commissions, and then we have the document that Paul gave to you that kind of create the rules of the road. You're not stood up by bylaws that are separate from like the governance structure of the city.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the rules of the road for you guys are this document, which I sent to you, which is the Winooski Planning Commission Rules of Procedure, and also conflict of interest policy, which Abby exercised tonight. And it's pretty boilerplate stuff, but it tells you when you elect officers, how you elect officers, you know, all that sort of stuff. So, you know, basically how many members there are, what the general decision-making process is. Which does bring me to a point that is on something I handed to all you, but it's, tonight we do have the typically you elect officers in June. Tonight, because we just lost our vice chair, we need to,
You did?
Jonathan was our vice chair.
Yeah.
He's gone.
I wasn't here, so
He was asked to resign because of potential conflict of interest, because he's paid staff on the fire department.
oh, wow.
So
Is that why we have 4 new people?
that we also,
I mean,
yeah,
well, I know we lost Ryan
And
Ryan.
Susan.
and Susan.
Susan, and then we were short 2 as well. So we have a total complement of 7, which is what the rules of procedure say you can have. So at some point before we move on to the next item, we need to select an interim vice chair to act as chair whenever Mike O'Brien, the current chair, is not here.
Just going back to the regular people being appointed. Somewhere I read 4 years, but I thought we were 2 years on this commission.
You're 2 years.
We are, okay, I think it might have been in one of those other documents that
It's
said
just,
that
it's in the general Winooski one, or sorry, the
Okay.
general Vermont one that
That's what I
talks about
thought, yeah.
typical terms, but.
So it's 2 years. Okay, that's what I thought.
And then what happens after the 2 years? You put your name back in, or?
Yeah, so you can, after 2 years, you can choose to, I will ask you at the end of your term, do you want to be reappointed or not? And if you say yes, unless you've done something really onerous, you will likely be reappointed.
And
It's
that-
actually
You get to
difficult.
do it like twice?
What's that?
Is it like
There's,
that
it's
each time
unlimited
out?
terms.
Oh.
And it's very difficult to remove you once you're in place, for the simple reason that that body, the city council, is a political voted on body, and you guys are supposed to be appointed, but then once you're in place, if you did something that the voted on entity didn't like, they couldn't remove you with ease. So you're in a way kind of protected to act in a way that is not entirely independent, but a little bit independent of the council.
And then Alice and Terry are the most senior members at the table. How long have you guys been?
Terry's been here the longest.
Well, it'll be 2 years, this, whenever. I don't-
Just longer than
Yeah.
2 years.
Okay.
yeah.
I don't know, I
1
don't
year.
think
Been
it's
here 1
even
year.
2 years yet. I think it's coming on 2 years. Right?
Just to add from that, you know, what the city had was a planner, right? So we had somebody who sat in an office and wrote plan, interpreted code, wrote zoning, and was a full-time staff member. And then about 8 years ago, maybe 9 now, the city made a decision to switch over to the planning commission model where we had like a group. And the whole point was we recognized the zoning was from 1982, 1981, really needed to be updated. So we had a pretty core group out at that time, and that group, the last person who left from that group was Susan Eddy, who stepped off just earlier this year, actually. So we had kind of a core planning commission group that moved through the whole process. Some people came and went, but there was kind of a core group that moved it along. For those who know Seth Gillen and Britta Fitterman on.
Nate DeJess was on it, wasn't he?
Nate came in. But so that group kind of has now passed on. This is like the newer iteration that's starting back up. I'm really excited. Like from a public perspective, it's really exciting.
And when did Mike join the planning commission?
Right after he left the mayor
Yeah,
or council.
he hung around home for like 6 nights and so. But it was pretty soon afterwards that he decided to step in. Yeah, so he was mayor previously.
So Mike was mayor for the bulk of the form-based code writing process, or the initial part of it. I know you were running for mayor.
Yeah, so Mike was mayor, I was the liaison to the form-based code group, so I myself and who else from council, maybe Sarah Robinson for a little while, served the liaisons, and then I was on through the completion of it, but Mike was mayor. Mike was always really big on pushing forward this model, the planning commission's existence and iteration. Natural place for him to land. Brings a lot of institutional knowledge memory to it.
So then, on a not personal note, but a note to all of you, I think Palace and Terry will attest that this group is generally very in between itself, collegial with each other, and there's a lot of really good free-flowing discussion. And if nothing else, I'm always a little bit entertained by the conversation because I never know where it's going to go. So I don't come into this saying, oh, I know we're going to start here and end up here. So, and that's, I think, truly appreciated. And so I think my encouragement to all of you is to think about what's in front of you, whether it be municipal plan or energy plan or transportation master plan, and be forthcoming and not be shy, because I think that's what makes the process rich.
Yeah, we want to have conversations, and we want to, any one of us probably misses something, so I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts.
And just another really great example of that in action was, I think we started the Main Street project with a kind of, basically we're taking the plans from the form-based code, the drawings from the form-based code project, the streetscape plans, and moving them forward as if they were the kind of what we were going to proceed with. And we had several meetings that involved the public at large with the Planning Commission and the Public Works Commission, and through some pretty serious discussion, the plans evolved in a way that I don't think the engineers expected, I don't think necessarily council expected, or the steering committee expected. And now the plans, as they're being moved forward to the final stages of preliminary engineering, have an uphill or northbound cycle bike lane, and at the same time we've managed to accomplish all the things. All the other modes are equally supported. Sidewalks are as wide as the original proposals, and so it became a much more rich project with the input from, in that one night at the O'Brien Community Center, with some really thorough debate and discussion.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
So does anyone have any questions about the rules of procedure or anything else that we've talked about?
So, sorry, did you raise the question of electing officers? Is that something you want to?
Well, I think we need to tonight at least appoint or elect a interim chair, vice chair.
Mm-hmm.
Terry, unless you don't want to be secretary any longer.
No,
treasurer.
I actually enjoy doing this, so I'm
Okay.
happy to.
So Terry is our current secretary treasurer.
I'm the treasurer too?
Mike O'Brien, who's not here, is our current chair, and we need to elect or appoint, however you choose to do it as a body, a vice chair. So I think the way it would be, the vice chair typically chairs the meeting if there's a conflict of interest with the chair, or the chair, for whatever reason, isn't here. So you can talk about it with each other, or you can nominate somebody.
I would be happy to be vice chair. I will be missing one meeting, probably the next one.
I can't believe you think you're only gonna miss
Oh
one.
my god, I know, really?
What?
I live 2 minutes away from here, so it's not
You
hard.
can bring the baby.
Yeah, I might, as long as that's allowed on TV, but have a baby. But I do plan to, I probably will miss one meeting, but Mike hopefully will be here and I will be back right after that. So, I would be happy to, unless there's someone else that really, really wants that role.
Thanks for stepping up.
So does someone want to nominate Palace?
I do. I nominate Palace to be the vice chair
Do you need a second?
of the planning commission. Did somebody second it?
I
Yeah.
second it.
Okay, thank you.
So we better vote on it.
All in favor?
Yeah,
Aye.
yeah.
Great.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So, Paul, is there more to the orientation?
No, I think that's,
or-
I mean, I think it's gonna be an evolving thing as we go forward. We're gonna talk about the municipal plan next, which I'd like to delve a little bit of energy into.
Yeah.
But if there's any questions, I think this would be the time to ask.
The one thing that I would like to do, if possible, especially for the new members, is just get a little bit more sense of everybody's background and what brought them here. Because for those of us who weren't part of the interview process, that will, be helpful in facilitating some of the conversation down the line if everyone's on board with doing that.
Okay. As I said before, as part of the DRB, I actually have a landscape architect in town, and actually a civil engineering degree, so I understand development, and we do a lot of planning as well, so that's why I wanted to be part of the team here.
Great.
Good. You go ahead too.
Oh. I joined the Planning Commission a year ago. Been a resident of Winooski for 2 years. My husband and I moved here with our now 2.5-year-old son. We own a duplex, so we live in half. We rent out the other half. So we have the perspective of homeowners, but we're also, actively engaged with the rental scene and population here. Really was so excited about Winooski and wanted to get involved in the community. I have a background, I'm a real estate agent, so I do work in real estate in the area. I also have a background in local governance. I was a school board member in Maryland where I lived previously, but have really become very interested in urban planning and housing, and that's why the Planning Commission seems like a natural fit, and it's been honestly the highlight of my month. Are these 2 meetings a month since I started, and I hope all of you guys feel the same way.
It's a paid advertisement.
Yeah.
So I moved to Winooski 3+ years ago, and I live in Russell Street with my 2-year-old, and moved from the south end of Burlington, so not very far, and we kept our condo there, but are selling it soon, and got a house here, and just love Winooski. My background is in environmental policy and urban planning. So I'm a certified planner, and I also am a lead, like a green building consultant. So I've always been really interested in how people move around and how places are built and how that affects people's quality of life. And I served on the Ward 5 NPA, Neighborhood Planning Assembly, when I lived in Burlington, and have been bogged down with what it means to have a 2-year-old, and just am like finally surfacing. And it just seemed like the right time to become involved, both with my family and then with the master planning stuff coming up. So excited to bring my specialty in planning is bikes and pedestrians, and so it's one of the reasons, it's probably the top reason, or top 2 reasons why we moved here, because it is a great city to get around without a car. Really excited about the form-based code and sort of where we're going as a city and what the city offers today. It's really unique, especially in a state like Vermont. So just happy to be here and be participating.
So Abby does bring a really a deep degree of professionalism to the, I mean, I've known Abby for a long time before when you were walk to school coordinator, and so she's been doing sort of the really in-depth work for a lot of years. So I think we're lucky to have you.
Thanks. Yeah, I used to work on the Safe Routes to School program in Winooski before I started working at UVM. So I was familiar with sort of what was going on here previously.
I've lived in Winooski since 1999. A long time. And I've always been interested in, not very active, but active in the community and gone to city council meetings and paying attention. And but I don't have the backgrounds that you guys have. I'm an artist. And I was just interested in doing something to give back to the community, and I was talking to Seth about it, and he said, oh, maybe you should join the planning commission. So that's how I ended up here, and I don't know, I'm starting to understand what I'm doing here, but and I didn't have an orientation like this. I just showed up at the meeting and that was it. So anyway, I'm happy to be here, and I hope to be here for a little longer so I actually can understand what's going on.
I see your postings on Facebook.
That's me.
Front forum.
That's me.
Yeah, it's good to put your face with the name. I moved to I'm in Winooski towards the end of 2012 with my family. I have 2 children. One is in UVM. She's going to be graduating next year, and an 8.5-year-old in elementary here in Winooski. And so since we moved to Winooski, I wanted to be involved because Winooski is a small city, and I wanted to be involved in some way. I then joined the Winooski Community Garden. I managed the community garden for 2 years in a row, and then here and there I didn't actually wore a specific hat or took a position, but then I was volunteering here and there, doing a lot of different things, sometimes translating housing satisfaction survey to community members in the language I speak, the other language, my first language, because there are a lot of people here that, that speak Nepali, and I speak Nepali. So, and then sometimes volunteering here, in the recruiting process with Seth and the team with, recruiting police officers and all that. And then I and my wife decided to do something like we bought a home, and then we bought a duplex for rental property, then bought another triplex, and then got more into this renting profile, and wanted to be more involved, and I'm here today. Sometimes I drive around, see the development projects and different things. Sometimes when I'm driving, sorry, and I, drive in a junction, like a T junction there, that sometimes I get just surprised and shocked when, drivers don't slow down when they are driving down straight, and, I'm driving towards the intersection there. It's so, and I can foresee accidents happening anytime, things as such, and also was involved in parks and recs and organizing games for kids and other people as well. So still looking forward to do something in the community. Don't have a lot of knowledge in planning, but wanted to learn, wanted to share my expertise.
So I lived in Winooski since
fall of 2016. I rent with my fiance over on Winooski Falls Way. I am an attorney. I work in Burlington. He's a software developer who both works from home and works from an office in Colchester. And I've always been interested in social geography and kind of what place means for things like community or identity or coming together. And one of the reasons that we loved Winooski and wanted to live here was because we enjoyed the public spaces so much. The green area before you had Cassavant, the way the circles transformed at Waking Windows, and I look forward to being a part of that. In terms of expertise, I bring nothing really in the specific arena of planning or development review, except that I spend my day reviewing documents and look forward to doing that at night as well. Great. Well, we're happy to have all of the new members, and I think we were shrinking, and it's really nice to have some new voices and perspectives. So thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone who stepped up. Does anyone else have questions for Paul while we are here and have kind of this open forum for general questions?
So how often does the public come, or does it sort of vary based on?
It can vary a ton. Like when we had those hearings for the Main Street Revitalization Project, I don't know, Paul, how many people do you think came to those? Those were
One of them, we had like 70 people, I think, down there.
that one, and then even this one, the room was pretty packed.
Yeah.
It really depends what's on the agenda,
That in itself, that's great to see that people are reading the agendas to the point
Well,
that
yeah, I
they
think
are.
tonight, the reason why no one's here is because it looked like an internally focused
Right.
Yeah.
meeting.
Well, I think also the ones where there's public input, like the one at the O'Brien Center, there's more than just the minutes that were out there. You know, like there was. Well, there was. Was there food?
There was. We
There was,
didn't
like,
see
cookies
that
or
because
something,
we
but-
were sitting in the.
But in any case, there was more. I think there was
Promotion.
more promotion for it to get
Yeah.
people to come out for sure.
But
So
I
if
mean,
it's
all the
promoted-
meetings are posted on Front Porch
Yeah.
Forum, so people do see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I would say probably the majority of our meetings we're gonna either, be nobody from the public or one or two people, but then occasionally there are topics that bring out a lot of people, but we're also filmed, so.
Streamed live right now. Anybody can watch it at home.
What channel?
17.
Yeah.
It's on YouTube. You have to.
Yeah. Anything else, other questions? I'll know our meeting schedule twice a
Yeah.
month, second and fourth Thursday. Which we have occasionally changed at times, but hopefully that's good for all of our new members too.
And there was talk of having a separate meeting, but
I-
we decided not to do that.
It didn't make sense to post, it didn't make sense to have this meeting without doing kind of a general orientation. If we had one before this meeting, we could have, but
Okay.
at this point, it just seemed to make sense to.
We had something originally that was gonna be on the agenda for tonight that got moved
No.
or, no, okay.
We did not.
Okay.
We are, either at the end of this meeting or the next meeting, we will reschedule the variety of commissions for
Okay.
revisitation, or visiting again.
Is the next meeting still the Housing Commission, or has that been moved as well?
I think that everything is, the schedule moving forward, I think, needs to be adjusted.
Okay, good.
So we'll be doing that at our next meeting then,
Yeah, probably, or
So
probably what
we've
I'll do
been
is I'll
doing,
write one up.
and just send it
It's
to
Send
us.
it to you.
So I'll tell everyone this, with the municipal plan, we've been meeting with different commissions throughout, for different meetings, because we want to get input on the plan and their expertise and ideas on our plan, and then we're basically meeting with them one-on-one to talk to them about what our vision is, what we'd like them to give us input on, and then they're gonna go off on their own and brainstorm and write down some, bullet points and ideas and come back to us. So, we have a few more commissions that we need to meet with that we haven't, and Housing Commission is one of those, commissions that will be on the schedule, if not next time, then I would assume within a couple of meetings.
So you as a planning commission have reviewed the existing master plan document?
Well, we're working on it basically from scratch at this point.
We kind of left that up to you. I sent it all to you, but we left it up to the individual individual planning commission members to do on their own time.
Okay, homework.
But the idea is that we would start afresh, and there's a history to the existing plan. It's dated, profoundly dated, and so we kind of took this opportunity to rethink it all together.
Are there good plans in other like another town? Or like,
We've been
is
using
Essex like the one that we should look at as the gold standard, or is there like a town in California that's
Essex has a really good plan. They won the plan APA's American Planning Association, not American Physicians Association.
yeah,
Every time I type in APA, I get the American Physicians Association. I'm like, I don't want this.
Because
But,
it's planning.org. That's right.
The APA awarded Essex 2 years ago the Plan of the Year, and it was done with the Orton Family Foundation, and it's a really good plan. It has a good online presence and a good physical presence.
Okay.
There's some other online plans I think are really good, which I can send you links to. And
this document, I just want to make sure everybody has seen it, because this is really the key document that we have been working on, where it says, this is kind of our broad, right now, outline of sort of the different sections that we plan to cover with some subtopics that we've been, this is what we're giving to the commissions to look at, to come up with feedback on all of these different areas.
And is this modeled off the Essex plan?
no.
No, it's not.
We went through a process to develop this.
Okay.
So let's step back and let me just say, I sent you all this, and I just gave you all a copy of it. And if you didn't have a chance to look at it between Sunday and now, I think I sent it on Sunday. It's a really thorough document. It was done, a really well done job. For example, if you look at page 53, this is one that the current planning commission, or the existing planning commission members will learn from too. There's good and bad examples of goals and objectives in your plan, and it's pretty explicit, what works in a plan and what doesn't work, and this is the kind of thinking we're going to be applying. And this document is chock full of this kind of both really practical information like this, but then also the statutory requirements. And so this document, while it's it's big and it's sort of got a lot of stuff in it, I find it to be really useful to get to what we're trying to do here. And so I'll briefly explain, and Seth, if you want to jump in anytime too, what I think we're trying to do with the municipal plan is both sort of describe Winooski as it is, but also what it aspires to be. What's aspirational about Winooski? What the goals are of the community at large, and how those goals have been reflected in a number of planning efforts to date, including transportation master plan, the housing commission work, the energy plan, the form-based code, gateway districts. There's a whole bunch of work, and including the behind you on the wall, the strategic vision statement, which if you look at the chapters, this document, it's roughly shaped around the strategic vision statement. So the strategic vision statement was generated 2 years ago.
2015.
And really in the why we did that is because the municipal plan that we have now is not a functional document. It doesn't do anything for us. The municipal plan as it's currently comprised was put together in order to really check boxes and was written that way. And the one section that got a lot of focus was the city's downtown redevelopment. It's the largest redevelopment of the downtown in the state's history. So that's very professionally written and rigidly written, but that was the focus of the plan, was getting that funding and financing and then maintaining it. So in the absence of a functioning plan, the council and its most previous iteration took the time to do a lot of polling, a lot of outreach, and a couple events where we brought people in and really asked, what is it you would like to see? Number one, why are you here? What do you like about the city? Why are you living here? What would keep you here? And what makes you excited to live here? And we built then that vision statement to really guide our investments based on that. But we really did that as a way of saying, right now the municipal plan is not a workable document. So we want to replace that really with what you produce. And just backing up, you know, this city, when we put a planning commission together and asked them to rewrite zoning, they spun their wheels for about 4 years and got almost nowhere. And there was a lot of frustration and a real hesitancy about whether or not this was going to fail and whether we were going to get a plan update. And that group took a step back and wrote what is the 10 principles you'll see in the beginning of the plan, and then worked from there. And that really changed the course of Winooski's history in a way that most people don't know about. It was a really significant moment that that group sat down and said, hold on, we are getting lost in details about what curb cuts should look like, and how high fences should be. Let's back up and talk about what the community we want to live in looks like. And they built those 10 principles and kind of moved forward from there. And it really cemented to the city, okay, these are the goals we're working for. We're trying to take another step in that direction here, and we see the plan that you're working on as really the next iteration of that.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if there is any, any development plan that is already being talked about, but that has not made an entry into papers, or if there's anything that the planning commission members of planning commission already know and that we new members don't know about.
So we have been working on this pretty much every meeting for, I don't know, 6 months or something, at least talking about it. So we started off with some sort of big visioning. What are some of our, big visions for the city, and what do we want this document to do? We talked about that, and we talked about all of the different areas that we wanted the plan to include. That's kind of what helped us create this document. What occurred to us is that there are lots of people who are involved in a deeper level in many of these areas, and we felt that it was critical to get their input and insight, which is how we developed the model that we're going down now, which is that we have, we've talked about things like it would be great to have an arts district or make Winooski a tech hub. We want to connect our parks, and we want to really define a sense of neighborhood identity. And these are all things we've talked about, but we haven't necessarily said, how exactly do we envision that happening? We know that different commissions are talking about similar things, and so what we're asking them to do is to go sit down during their own meetings and talk about these ideas and come back to us with those specific ideas for us to filter through, talk about our own ideas, and kind of like mesh them together into an actual plan, which hasn't been written yet. This is like a collective process of developing it that way. So, we have discussed a few specific ideas, but we're kind of opening this up. So, for example, there's a housing commission. We're not just going to the housing commission and saying, give us your thoughts on housing. We want them to look at everything here, and if they've had discussions internally on any of the topics that we have, we want to know what they think, and we want to put that input into this. So we're kind of one by one having meetings with the commissions and saying, please bring us your big ideas, and then we'll work through them, and then probably invite them back. We've talked about for a second round to talk to them and, you know, on certain topics, they may have expertise that we don't have that will help us. Which is great, but we want to make sure we're doing this thoughtfully and be informed of what is going on, you know, in other
Yeah,
commissions.
that sounds very good. And the other thing I have is about the swimming pool up in Landry Park.
Yeah.
Are we involved in to some extent, or?
Pool is right here.
Okay.
So that's going to be some part of our plan. We
Okay.
want to do that. So that's again an example of, you know, we want to involve the people that are actively involved in that pool project to tell us what their vision is and discuss it with us. And then that will, in one way or another, work into our plan because it benefits everyone for that to be in the plan in some way.
So it might benefit to tell you that one of the things the plan does, the municipal plan does for any municipality, and this is by state statute. So if the plan envisions and describes activities such as a pool, when we seek funding for that pool or seek any kind of support from any entity other than within ourselves, the first question always asked is, does your municipal plan support that? So the municipal plan can support the activities that we might think about asking for grant funds for. For example, the Main Street project well, I think we can argue that it is currently supported by the municipal current plan, but we will try to enhance the support for things like the Main Street projects, things like the pool, things like if there are community garden, there are discussions with community services about how we can write language in that further supports community garden activity or farm or kind of food sovereignty or food insecurity issues within the community. So that's all stuff that should be, if it's important to this community and important enough that the community might seek support from the state or from the federal government, it should be somehow described within this document, or not this document, the plan. But in a way that's loose enough that it doesn't constrain you. So it doesn't say a pool in Landry Park, but describes the activities that revolve around the pool and the recreation potential and the taking care of children in the summer, or all the cross section of the Winooski population. So those are kinds of things that the municipal plan wants to describe.
I don't want to get bogged down into any details right now, but I just wanted to mention, Paul, really quickly while it's on my mind. We did, there were a few things last time when we were looking at, the previous version of the document that we realized were missing off of this document, like the O'Brien Community Center and the child care facilities that I want to make sure that all those notes from last time get updated on here.
So what happened last time, this
Yeah.
is literally, I take all my notes, I have a bag that is my bag that has everything in it.
Yeah.
Everything. And it was stolen from my car.
Are you kidding?
No.
Here in Winooski?
No, I'm in Newport, and my my voluminous 2 notebooks that have been for the past 3 years of everything I've written down.
Oh my god.
Like everything, and it was no hard drive backup. It was like this bag this thick full
what a
of
disaster.
that always sits right next to me in this meeting. I take stuff and put it in there, and I was like, the next morning I got home and I was like, something's missing from my car, and I just left it in there because I was gonna turn around and come back the next morning, and so I was a little bit at a loss.
Yeah, and I think we didn't film the last meeting, so.
But I think we can make those things up now. Or
Those were just 2. I know there were more. Those were the 2 that just immediately came to mind: the O'Brien Center and child care, which was under Section 5. But unfortunately, I don't remember the other items that we talked about.
Well, I think we'll get there.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think they're lost forever to the.
No, and I mean we're encouraging all of the commissions, like if there are areas that they think we've missed, to create their own categories. But I do think if we have more when we hand this off to the commissions, then it'll give them a starting place to think about different.
The other thing I did, just so you all know, for this document is I did actually add a few things that I remembered, but then I also put in where there were appropriate the statewide goals for, say, economic development. And at the end I put a statewide goals section, and that was because we the municipal plan needs to align with the regional plan, which needs to align with the statewide documents. So the statewide goals, our goals should be reflective of in some ways of the statewide goals. That's a sort of unspoken requirement of the plan that we can't, but the statewide goals are so generic and so inclusive that it's not going to be hard to do. I kind of think we're already doing it, but I put that in there as a kind of footnote to ourselves to say, okay, we need to be thinking about this as well.
There was one more I remember from last time, which was parks. I know we said we have natural areas, but I think we decided that not all parks necessarily would qualify as natural areas, so, yeah. So are this is being emailed out to the commissions before they come to the meeting with us?
Right.
Is that okay?
And what's the language that's given to them so that they don't come and get burdened in the minutia? And, like, how do you say, for somebody that's unfamiliar with a master plan, that you want them to contribute with giving them enough guidance so that they understand, like, the level that the master plan is versus the detailed?
So what we did before, and I think this will be the last thing we do today, but what we did before was each planning commission member was assigned a committee or commission, and those individual members met with the commission commission chair or the commission staff member, depending on how it was worked out, and had this sort of broad-based discussion with that liaison. And then when the commissions have all, except for the housing commission, have all been have all had a joint meeting with this commission, the planning commission. And in those joint meetings, it was described that this was meant to be in the broadest of terms, but also kind of also a kind of aspirational sort of thing, but not like we want the sidewalk on Russell Street and whatever to be fixed.
Right.
And so it was sort of described to them that way, and whether or not we have yet to see whether or not that they will.
Yes.
Public Works Commission is meeting right now.
Okay.
And I once again gave Jonathan, their staff person, this and sort of gave him this and said, think about these broad principles. So,
So there is some communication
Yeah.
before they show up here to be like, this is high level, like aspirational.
I think a lot of the function of the first meeting with us is actually to establish that tone in person, like to be like, this is a big vision document. We want you to think big. We want you to tell us, this is your opportunity to tell us those big, bold ideas that you have had and talked about in your meetings, without necessarily feeling like you have to justify how everything is going to be accomplished. Like, we want to hear the idea because that's, what's going to get us to a place where we can even discuss it or think about it. So the first meeting that we have, which with each commission, we've had, I guess, with every commission now except for the housing commission that we plan to. So that's going to happen at a future meeting. We've had that discussion, and they've come we don't ask them to come here prepared that day with anything other than, knowing that they're going to have a conversation about the municipal plan. And then we ask them to come back in a month or two after they've had a chance to meet on their own with those ideas. But I think we've tried to set a tone that they should, I think some of the questions that we've gotten are like, oh, do we have to type up a paper? And we've tried to be like, no, we just a bullet point list is fine. We really want to hear just ideas and not have people get caught up in formality or writing
or operational
to us.
stuff.
Yeah. And I had only been to that other meeting, and it seemed like that wasn't communicated to them, and they were talking about and I don't know, just for efficiency for our meeting and everything, to have some sort of communication with them. It doesn't really matter at this point if there's only one more commission that we're meeting with to do it in this way, but.
Yeah, and what happened in that particular one was an interesting one because we had prepared, so Terry and I had met with Ray.
And you took a ton of notes.
And I gave them to Ray, and Ray decided he didn't want to use them for that meeting. So, that's his prerogative. And the Public Works Commission met with Jonathan and Jesse, who was at that point staffing Public Works, and I think that the communication went really smoothly with them. So, it all depends, but it's, you know, it's a learning curve.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, Seth?
Well, and I think the whole idea of the way we've asked the plan to be written is really for it to be spoken hub, where they have very technical documents that need to be updated regularly, and they're gonna be looking to the plan. Right now, there's more information coming up to you, and that's to inform you and to allow you to understand what the philosophy's been behind the work that's been done and the feedback they've gotten behind the public, so you can set that high kind of policy vision. And then that further informs when they go to update public works standards, and you've set out this goal of really walkable streets, that tells them, okay, we need to mandate that the streets need to be wider than maybe the specs look like now. But it also keeps it so we don't find ourselves in this position again where we have a municipal plan that's unusable. And we instead spoken hub it, where if we're updating the master transportation plan every 4 or 5 years, that's just on that schedule, and that updates that section of it, and we're not reliant on reopening the entire plan to do that. And you've set the philosophical boundaries of what it is they're supposed to achieve with their more technical specific work.
So the plan at this point can be an 8-year document. The state changed it from a 5-year document to an 8-year document. So to that end, I think it wouldn't be harmful to sort of begin to identify who wants. I mean, you're probably still going to work with community services as we move forward. We should probably all sort of self-identify within the commissions who
I was assigned to housing, although I wasn't here the day you assigned it to me, but I got that.
But you did a great job. So we lost the representative, the planning commission member who was the liaison with Public Works Commission.
So is that what you're volunteering for, or?
Oh, I could do either municipal,
Municipal.
infrastructure or the 5 safety.
It's
Well, the commissions are on the back page.
Oh, sorry.
So there's Public Safety, Public Works, Community Services, and Housing Commission.
Are the last two, there aren't liaisons for the school district and the CCRPC?
Well, I think we probably do need a liaison with the school district and also with CCRPC. I think that
Public Works.
yeah, Public Works is lacking a liaison. So if you wanted to
Can do
be,
that.
What was Mike assigned to?
he was economic development, and sorry, the joke was he was assigned to Heather to do economic development, but he was going to do economic development and also work with me for general chapters, meaning introduction and things like that.
Oh, okay.
So the first introduction overview stuff,
it.
he was going to work with me on that.
So sorry, what's taken already? Amy's doing public works, and you're doing housing.
And I'm doing community services.
You're doing community services.
So an interesting, the one that we grouped with community service was public safety, and I actually think that that's a pretty rich topic, especially when you start talking about community policing and or changing the model of policing, which I think, or even how we do any of our community safety or public safety stuff. So I think that we need someone to also interface with them.
Another thing that I don't know if we want to have a person in charge of, but picture collection is another topic that we've talked about before. Aggregating photos for the plan.
So there's two other pieces that are, one of the pieces, that's one that's there, but that's also, I think, going to be, we're about to issue an RFP for the Municipal Planning Grant, which we have roughly $26,000, and we'll have a consultant who will help us with graphic images,
Great.
maps, the GIS mapping, and the sort of collection of the kind of presentational materials. So I think that there likely needs to be a planning commission member who is specific to whoever the consultant is, that so it'll be staff, me, and some planning commission member who will interface with the consultant on that. And that would be looking at graphic imagery, photographic imagery, kind of map imagery, which.
Do you still want us, I know originally you said when you're out, take pictures of stuff.
We still, the Dropbox or the Google Dropbox is still existing, and I'll invite the new members to it, but the idea would be that if we're at a farmer's market in the springtime, or the fall leaves are beautiful, or the snow looks really pretty on a morning like today, if you happen to have your phone or camera and you see something you love, take a picture and put it in the Dropbox. If you look at Essex Plan, or any good plan, you'll see that it's like 70% graphic, and the rest is references to the spokes out documents. So we do have that, and we need to facilitate that a little better.
And so for these other partners and commissions that haven't been assigned anybody, are they equal weight? Are we just as concerned about getting somebody with CCRP seat in the school district as the Public Safety Commission, or?
I think they are equal weight. I think that if you look at the chapters as they are written or sort of described, some things like the safe, healthy, connected people seem to have a lot of things going on, because that sort of crosses all the different territories. And while housing has three bullet points, housing also, if you think about it in a really global sense, it really addresses almost everybody's. It does address every need, human being in Winooski's needs. So I think they're equal weight, even though there's more or less bullet points per each one.
I would be happy to be the liaison to the Public Safety Commission.
Okay.
And I'll take the CCRPC.
I'd love to be the school district.
That's a fun one.
And you have a kid in the school, so that's perfect.
Yeah.
And so, Palace, you're still housing.
I'm still housing.
And then,
Where was Mike?
Mike?
It's not on this list, but he's doing, I guess, Historic Society and working with Paul on the contextual chapters.
Seth, did you?
So just note, Mike is also our rep to the CCRPC. I just want to put that in for context too.
So should I not be that one?
I don't know if it's something you guys have talked about.
And is that like, they have a planning commission rep?
They have a city rep.
I'll tell you what, if you go and love it, we need an alternate, so.
Sure.
Just throw that out there.
You might also consider being the sort of liaison to the consultant.
Okay.
Whoever.
I'm saying okay, but I don't know what commitment that is.
I don't think it's going to be much more of a commitment than any of the others, other than the fact that that group, whoever it is, and we can talk afterwards for a minute, but might have some pretty fun dynamic stuff going on, and I think they will be being paid to do a lot of work, or theoretically a lot of work, and the liaison would be the gatekeeper for that work. So,
Okay. I mean, instead of doing the CCRPC thing.
let's talk afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah, but I maybe both.
Welcome.
What am I saying yes to? I just keep saying yes. All right, we can talk after.
All right, so, anything else anyone wants to address before we make a motion to adjourn?
Just out of curiosity, I see a lot of commissions and a lot of other projects, and if any, if there is a when we are working, if there is a conflict between other commissions or other, like we are addressing the same issue, are we talking about the same thing at different, and another commission or another?
Oh,
group
you're
is
saying when
talking
they
at the same
come
time?
back to us with their recommendations, if two of the recommendations from different commissions conflict with each other, what happens?
Yeah,
So-
so if there is any conflict as such, how do we?
So, I mean, I think the way I
How do we
see
handle
it
this?
is that we're asking for input, and they're
Mhm.
giving us our input, and then it is our job to discuss that input, and if we need further clarification to make a decision, then we can go back to each of the commissions and ask for further clarification. But I mean, we're the final,
They,
kind of,
you are the final voice to make recommendations to council, which ultimately
Yeah.
the plan is a recommendation.
to put
the
into our
council.
draft. Yeah.
Right, but in recent history, again, I'll go back to the Main Street project. We knew that there was going to be some potentially conflictual kind of messages or image or thoughts about Main Street, and we put it out to the public. We had I think, a really healthy debate, and consensus was arrived at. So I think the goal would be to, through a public process and a internal process, get to consensus,
Yeah.
resolve conflict through discussion, through compromise. And in the case of the Main Street project, I don't think it was a compromise at all. I think the consultant and the community pushed the project to a new level, to a better level, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think like an example, like we had been talking about parks and some of the things that, you know, maybe I had thought of or other people on the planning commission had thought of in terms of what to do with our parks. And one of the areas that I was interested in is connecting Casavant Park with Gilbrook, and we brought this up last week at the last meeting with the Community Services Commission, and you know, they brought up some practical potential limitations to that idea that I was not aware of, and that doesn't necessarily mean that that's not worth going forward, but you know, one commission might have insight based off of experience working, you know, in a particular area that another one isn't aware of. So I expect we're going to see conflicting ideas at times, and then I think we need to get the information and then craft, you know, and we're asking for bullet points so that we can kind of figure out where those points are and then craft some kind of narrative to go into the plan.
That's clear enough. And there is, you know, there is Parks and Rec Department, autonomous. They are huge, and they do a lot of those things on their own as well.
Right. So that's a resource. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, this is meant to be ultimately guidance for all the city departments, all, you know. So when planning does a project, it says, does it conform with the ideas in the plan in a general sense? Same with Parks and Rec. So, or community services.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Exciting.
All right.
Thank you for having me here today.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Does anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
Sure, I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second the motion.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you guys for coming.
Welcome.